Welcome to the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is Jen and Kelsey from Honest Real Estate. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Pat.
Thanks for having us.
Great. I always start off the show by asking, how did you get started in real estate? So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Perfect. So how'd you get started?
So I got licensed in 2018.
Okay.
Before that, I went to school for communications. I wanted to get into public relations. I was in the field briefly, just working for a hair salon doing their social media and stuff, and I just realized it wasn't for me. So I want to try something different and decided to take my real estate test, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. Perfect. Jen, how about you?
So I was managing a hair salon for a few years. I had to quit, so I knew I needed to get into something else sales related. I didn't want to work for someone. I didn't want to do a 9 to 5. And one day I was sitting home and Kelsey was like, just go to real estate school. And I was like, okay, I have nothing to lose. And here I am.
Okay. Now, so when did you started in 2018? But not.
Yeah, but I didn't go full time
Right,
until 2019, 2020.
And then how about you, Jen?
2020.
2020. Okay. Now, when you ended up becoming realtors, did you both start off at Honest Real Estate?
I did.
You did.
I was at Keller Williams first, and then went to Honest Real Estate.
Okay. And then when you started, were you a team or were you individual agents before joining up as a team?
When she started, that's when the team started. So prior to, she wasn't licensed, so I was just an individual agent. And then when she joined, that's when we decided to do the team.
Okay, great. And now, what was the decision? Why did you say, hey, let's go in here as a team?
Good.
So when I came, she was already working, and she was like, when she told me to go to real estate school, I was like, I don't think I can, because I also have another business where I work weekends. And she was like, let's just partner up, do it as a team. And I thought real estate would be a little more part-time, but now it's more, we're just a full-time team.
Surprise.
Yeah, we just went full-time team. And then even though I didn't need to be a team anymore because I went full-time, it worked so well, and it's been since day one. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's the number one thing. People think that they can do real estate part-time, but they don't realize, and everybody who I spoke, not everybody, but a lot of agents who I've spoke to, they're saying that was one of the number one things, that they didn't realize how much time, because for a client, it's the most important thing, whether they're selling or buying. And hey, they'll pick up the phone and call you at 10 o'clock at night. They don't care. They don't care if you're on vacation. They just don't care. For them, that's the most important thing going on in the world.
Yeah, I think a lot of agents confuse the flexibility. It's flexible because it's not 9 to 5, but it's not part-time.
Right.
Yeah.
You get phone calls all the time. Great. Okay. So what does your book of business look like? In other words, do you deal with buyers, sellers, both, more sellers, more buyers, what does that look like?
I would say we deal with more buyers, a lot of first-time home buyers. I feel like that's primarily what we deal with. But in the recent, I would say in the last year or so, we've gotten a lot more listings too. But I would say majority buyers than sellers.
Yeah, and then over time, those buyers we've met a few investors, so then they turn into our sellers, but we're primarily first-time home buyers.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now, as far as just the overall market, what are you seeing in the market? Heck, interest rates have been elevated for the past, couple of years. So affordability is always an issue, especially when you're dealing with first-time home buyers. So what are your buyers saying, and what's causing a buyer to actually jump in and say, you know what? I'm tired of renting, or I want to buy a home. Is there any one thing, or there could be 100 things that really moves the needle so they jump in?
So recently, I feel like a lot of buyers who were looking to buy when the market was a little crazier, lower interest rates, they took a break, and they're more inclined to come back now because they feel like it's less competition. The houses aren't selling super fast, so they feel like they can see a house, think about it, write an offer.
Right.
So right now, I have a few pre-approved buyers who they were looking when the rates were lower. They took a break, and they're all coming back now. So it's been good.
Right. That is so true, because in 2021, when interest rates were 3%, that was the lowest statistically wise with first time home buyers because the competition was so fierce and you wouldn't be able to do home inspections, things like that, that if you're a first time home buyer, you want to make sure the house is
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
mean, you're a limited amount of money. So that is without a question, an issue. Okay, great. Now, as far as your sellers what are your sellers saying? Because I know you mentioned you had, some listings, and you even mentioned you had a commercial listing, to me. But what are your sellers saying? Are they saying that, hey, my interest rate's so low, I don't feel like getting a new interest rate, or are they finally saying, you know what, enough's enough. I have to move. My family got too big, or whatever the case is.
I recently I would say like the sellers that I've been dealing with, luckily none of them have had a really low interest rate, so I didn't really encounter that
Right.
issue. But I have talked to people who and I'm one of them. I bought my house in 21. My interest rate's so low, and I'm like, I need to move, but I do feel like I'm crazy to sell that house because of how low my interest rate is. So I always tell people like when that conversation does come up, I say like let's explore running it. Like
Right.
you can keep it as income and still have that asset, but you're not losing, the interest rate. But I think some people do think, I guess with it being so low, that now 6% seems like
So high, right.
astronomical. So yeah, it's definitely a concern. But luckily for me, I feel like I haven't really encountered that issue too much. But like I said, when that conversation comes up, I kind of recommend maybe looking into renting your house out, keep it,
Right. Which is smart and opens things up. And a lot of people are doing that. And that's why inventory levels are still, relatively low because a lot of people are doing they're taking your advice. That's what's going on here, right? Okay. So, also in the conversation, you mentioned you recently had like a challenge where you were, I don't know, you just mentioned and you were super successful with it. What was that? And was it broker based or was it, just you guys in general, doing it amongst yourself? So, what did that look like?
So
What did you do?
originally, I am part of like a business entrepreneur like women's group.
Okay.
They're from like all over the country. So it was a 6-week challenge, and it was more like everyone kind of had to tailor it to whatever business they were in. And I got, somewhat successful. I wouldn't say I put 100% into it, but I thought it was a great idea to bring to the brokerage. So I talked to our broker about it. We set it up within the company. We did have a few agents participate, and what I basically did was kind of come up with like a guideline to follow. So it was making sure to post on social media every day, making sure you're doing at least one open house every weekend, following up with past clients, following up with clients who may not have been pre-approved, like just things like that. But just constant and like doing floors, like being in the office as much as possible. For me, I feel like that time I went like 100%, and my goal. So the big thing was like everyone had to set a goal that they wanted to reach. My goal was to get 1 million under contract in 6 weeks, and we ended up getting almost 2 million. It was like 1.95 million under contract in that 6 weeks. So
Right.
yeah, it was good. It was a good challenge, and I think like just repeating the basics kind of just got. It is like what I could say made it so successful.
Right.
Going back to the basics.
And that's huge. Like everybody says, the more conversations you have, the more business will end up having. You don't know, you could have 100 conversations, but out of those 100 conversations, there could be 5 or 6 people that are ready to move forward. But if you didn't have those 100 conversations, you wouldn't have found the 5 or 6 people. So it's just really getting out there. And like you said, just doing, the basic stuff, calling the database. They know you, they like you, they trust you, so that's the easiest thing. And heck, if you call them 3-4 times a year, to say hello and just to say hello. Oh, I saw on Facebook, little Johnny had a home run. Congratulations. I mean, they know you're a realtor,
Exactly.
just say hello, stay in touch, and be top of mind. So that's super smart. Now, what are you guys doing for, the end of the year? And going into next year, are you planning any more, strategies like, the challenge, or are you putting any of that kind of stuff into play? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we're gonna start the challenge again ourselves, like this month. So another 6 weeks just to stay consistent with all of that. And then we actually just started doing the mailers. It's not for everyone, but we had a couple agents at our office started, and they're getting success with it. So we started that. They're going out this week. And then
Explain more. The mailers for what?
so everything that if our client buys or sells a house, we're just going to send out a just sold it or the price,
Yeah.
everything within a 1 block radius. And then we're just doing little things like sending out the Eagles, Phillies flyers just to stay in front of our clients as much as possible.
Now, what are you projecting next year? Now, they've been saying this for the past 3 years, interest rates are going to come down. They haven't yet, but at some point they will. But what are you seeing for next year? Are you talking to people where they're saying, enough's enough, I have to buy a home, like maybe I'm having, another baby or I'm getting married, I have to get out of the apartment, whatever the case may be. But what are you seeing with next year? You think it's going to be a stronger year than 2024?
Next year's always going to be a better year than this year.
That is the attitude. It's always better, always better.
Look, everyone needs a house to buy, so we can't wait for the rates to drop or anything. We just go with what's in front of us. So everyone needs to buy a house eventually or get into a rental. So that's always good for us. If they're not ready and they rent, then they'll be a buyer soon.
Right. There was a statistic that I read that renters, I think it was 54% of renters say the next move is they're going to buy a house. Enough's enough. Now, we don't know if they're going to continue renting for a year or 2 or 3, but they said, hey, the next move is going to be buying a house with it. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's what you mentioned, Kelsey. It's just staying in front, having conversations, being available, because you don't know when the person's ready to move forward. Okay, great. What else? Other than that, like what other little nuggets of inspiration or knowledge can you drop on on the podcast? Do you have anything?
When you were saying about interest rates too, for me, I've learned like when they start to go back up, I felt like I was in a panic. But I think if you just have the mindset of not letting that get to you, like don't let it be a thing. Like even like with this whole like NAR settlement, like I think so many people panicked. Like, is this going to be the end of real estate? Like it's all your mindset. Like
Right.
what you going to let it be the end of your real estate, or are you just going to push through? And the industry is always evolving. We just have to evolve with it.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and that is super smart. You can only control what you can control. So you can't control if interest rates go up. You can't control if they go down. Now, with the North settlement, we beat this to death. But have you had any issues? Because for me, on my side of what I'm seeing, for the most part, and everybody I'm talking to, it's pretty much like a nothing burger. It's like it came and you adapted a little bit, and that's it. I mean, I don't know. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think, like you said, like we've just had to adapt a little more. I think for me personally, I'm putting a lot more emphasis on just explaining the buyer compensation more than I normally would have. And when I do have sellers who ask about it, I explain it to them, and I just, put it out there. Like if you didn't want to, like not that it was always an option, but I think now people are curious, like, does this mean like I don't have to? And I just kind of explain to them, like, it's makes your house a little less competitive, like if you don't want to, then, you don't have to.
You
But
never had to do it.
really, I've never had, not never, but recently I don't think I've had much other than, I think it's more on the buyer side is getting these contracts signed, that like upfront, especially if you're working with someone who doesn't really know you kind of want to like make them feel comfortable to sign the contract, but you don't want to be shoving it down their throat like, hey, I just met you sign this contract.
Right.
So that's been a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, what we've been doing different is probably like most agents, we just meet them at the house. When they write an offer, we do the contract. Now, instead of just shoving the contract in front, we're meeting at the office doing a buyer consult. Kind of like you guys get stuff up front. So now it's like you're done with the mortgage company. Let's meet, get our paperwork straightened out, and it's been fine.
Yeah. And that's what I've been hearing. Pretty much everybody said it rarely comes up in a conversation, but it does. But they still have the conversation because you have to.
Right.
But it really doesn't. It's really not a thing. I mean, in our industry, when something happens, it's like, the whole world is, on fire. But for everybody else, they don't even know.
They don't know. Yeah.
So it's really crazy. Okay, so you deal with buyers and sellers, right? Now, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, the dynamic duo here, right? How would they do that?
So I'm on Instagram, just JENN_Beck, and my phone number is 267-650-1803.
And my Instagram is Keys with Kels, and my phone number is 215-910-6561.
Well, thanks a lot for being on the show. I've been trying to get you guys on for quite some time and kept on blowing me off.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, that's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez. Now, be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. Give me some likes. It really helps out the show. And also subscribe. Super important. Subscribe. I have great guests like Jen and Kelsey on the show. And also leave a comment. Tell me some topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week.
Wow, you're good at that.